Yes, everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Celtic View Podcast, and we have plenty to discuss today from the weekend's action, plus all the look ahead to another big week for all three sides, including the first team with that Champions League tie against Shakhtar Donetsk coming up on Tuesday evening. We have a very special guest with Jiri Jarosik joining the podcast, a man who scored the last time we played Shakhtar Donetsk at home all the way back in 2007. Paul, you're joining us again this week, and there is plenty to get into, isn't there?
Well, to be fair, we did warn people last week that we were probably going to be starting from this podcast talking about VAR. So I think we were as good as our word. It was quite prophetic, actually.
Yeah. I mean, in terms of getting a moment of the weekend from you, it's probably going to obviously come from the game against Hearts, a 4-3 win. Was there anything in particular in that game that you really enjoyed more than anything else? Anything that kind of stands out for you?
I mean, I think Greg Taylor's winner and his celebration was fantastic. I mean, I think he's just been getting better and better since the manager came in. I think he's, really grasped the kind of style of football we're playing. I think he's really thrived on it. I think this season he's been exceptional. And then to come off the bench and then appear, as he said to you after the match, that it maybe wasn't the manager's instructions to end up in the 6-yard box, but that just shows the desire of the team and to get that goal, and you could see how much it meant to him. So that was wonderful.
Yeah, I think that'd have to be the same for me as well. And as you said, the manager saying to me, didn't expect him to be in the centre forwards position. It's not what he asked of him at all. So just a brilliant moment in such a topsy-turvy game. It was crazy. Do we start with VAR or do we start with the performance? What do you want to go with?
I mean, it's hard to extricate the two of them. I mean, I think the performance, it was a great game, and it was interesting again when the manager was speaking to you after the game. He said he would much rather have a 4-3 win than a 1-0 win from purely entertainment point of view. And it was certainly a game that we deserved to win, and I think it would have been an injustice in so many different levels if we hadn't taken all 3 points. And I think it's, in terms of the team, I think it was credit to them that they didn't allow other things to derail them or knock them off their stride. And, it was great to get the win. It's always great to win through there anyway. But it was in the manner that we did was absolutely fantastic, given everything that went on in the course of the 90 minutes.
Right, let's talk about the action then, and then we'll quickly go into VAR at the end of it all. In terms of just the game of football in general, it was an absolutely amazing game. I think if you were for ourselves, obviously winning the match, it was amazing. If you were a neutral, you would have loved the match. Maybe not so much if you were a Hearts fan, but just an amazing game of football. It was extremely end to end, frantic, probably a game of the season so far as well. But when you then get the result at the end of those games become even sweeter.
Yeah, although I do think you can't analyse the game in isolation from VAR, because the key instance in terms of a Celtic perspective, that whole idea of goals change games, I think it would have changed the whole complexion of the game. So, for example, Anthony Ralston's goal, that stands, we're 2-0 up against the Hearts side that weren't at full strength. We started the game strongly. I'm not sure that the game would have turned out the same way. Similarly, if we had got our penalty right on the stroke of half time, we go in at 2-1 up, I think it changes the game again. So those things, it did make for it seemed like an end-to-end game, but I felt that's what we had to contend with as well.
Yeah, in terms of the opening goal of the game, James Forrest got his 4th goal in his last 2 league appearances. But in terms of that kind of end-to-end nature, you saw that in that first goal because Hearts had a big chance just before that. We go straight up the other end and score from Forrest as well. Perfect start to the game. And then, as you kind of mentioned, Anthony Ralston seems to put us 2-0 in front. The referee blows his whistle before the ball hits the back of the net, which means VAR can't check for that decision to then overturn it. It was bizarre being in the stadium. I don't think I've ever been at a game like that. We've had games here where VAR's been in use and it's worked quite smooth. It's not really had much of an impact in the game. The referee there just gets that completely wrong because he blows early. Hopefully you would like to think that's just part of the teething problems with VAR, that eventually referees will start to understand that, but it was bizarre being in the stadium because nobody knew what was going on. And it was funny because I was sitting next to the Hearts Stadium announcer in the press box. So he gets a kind of little call in his ear to say when a check's been made. So you're sitting there for ages, nothing's happening. I'm kind of giving him a nudge saying, do you know what's going on? And he's looking at me being like, I don't know what's happening here. And nobody in the ground knew what was going on. And I think, obviously, that's maybe one of the things with VAR as well. You want to just see that process go a little bit smoother and a bit faster. And in terms of communication with the fans as well in the park could probably improve. But that was just a big error.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the ones where actually, I mean, to be fair, it was an innocuous foul anyway. I'm not even sure if it was a foul that the referee blew for. And as soon as he blew the whistle, that was my first thought. He shouldn't have done that. He should have let the play unfold. Then if VAR has a look at it again, Anthony Ralston's onside, he doesn't impede anyone, it's a goal. But because that's the first time, you almost want to say, well, that's maybe just because instinctively the referee is blown when he sees a foul. It's going to take them a bit of time before they realise they have to let the play unfold. So you're almost, that's one where it was an incorrect decision, it should have been a goal, but especially since we won, you can be magnanimous and say, right, fair enough, the referee's just done what he would have done any other week and blown for what he sees as a foul. So he's maybe been a bit too quick to react. So that's one where you can see that that's a teething trouble for it.
Yeah, and it is easy for us to sit here because we have won. And for a lot of people are saying, you know, you've won the game, why go over everything? But that game could have went completely differently. Hearts get back into it, they get a penalty. I actually don't know how the ref didn't see it wasn't a penalty in the first place, you know.
I think when you win, it's more important to question these things. I think because then it doesn't seem like sour grapes. You know, you don't have that sense of injustice. You've won the game despite VAR, not because of it, as I predicted last week. So therefore, I think it's legitimate, and I think the penalty is a perfect example. And I think, you know, both managers said one of the biggest gripes was the delay. But again, with that instant, it should have been a penalty. I think it was a penalty. I don't know why he didn't give it. But I think the delay was maybe because that was the very first time that the VAR referee was having to question the referee's decision and say to him, I think you should look at it again. So maybe that's why they're wanting to check and double check and triple check. There's a certain irony in the fact it took nearly 5 minutes before they told the referee to go and have a look at the decision, given how quickly they dismissed our penalty. I don't even think it was 30 seconds. So I don't know whether they'd changed channels or gone away early for the half-time cup of tea and they never bothered looking, but that was extraordinary.
Oh, I know. And that's the thing with the games now, that you're going to end up having these matches running for so much longer because the VAR's taken forever. I mean, there was 5-6 minutes of added time at the end of the first half. I think by the time the game ended, it's a good sort of 15 minutes after you would usually expect a game to...
But I think those are the teething troubles. Again, that first penalty incident is quite a clear penalty. So I think with time, the VAR referee will just... All you have to look at it is a couple of angles just to double check and say to the referee, you have to go and have a look at that again. And it would have taken a minute or two off it. Again, I think it's because it was the first time they were telling the referee, I think you might have made a mistake there. So that's fine. Again, ultimately the decision's the correct one, even though it goes against us. But I think it's the handball that the whole world knew about, which was extraordinary. I mean, it was so obvious at the time. I think, from people at the stadium saw it was a handball. And again, I always think with these incidents you have to look at the referee and see where's his position. Does he think that Michael Smith is his hand at his side? So again, even if you're giving him the benefit of the doubt, the reaction of the player who immediately puts his hand behind his back because he realises that it's a penalty because he moved his arm towards it. So again, he's never going to say, "Well, I've handled that as a penalty." VAR is there precisely for those instances because the VAR referee, Stephen McLean, gets to see that about 3 or 4 different angles. Every angle shows that it's a handball. Now, within 30 seconds, he's told the referee just to wave play on. I think, particularly in these early stages of VAR, what would be helpful is for the football authorities to come out and explain the thinking behind that, the process, because then people might understand why a VAR referee seen that incident in 3 or 4 different angles where it hit his hand, where the player moved his hand towards the ball, where the player then puts his arm up his back because he realises he's made a mistake. Why the referee wasn't told to go and have another look at that? Because if he had, it's a penalty to us. We go in 2-1 up at half time. I think it would be really helpful to know why the VAR referee didn't do that, because I can't think of a reason why.
I think for my position in VAR is I think I've been going into it a little bit more optimistic with it, just in general, in terms of the concept of it.
Is that the optimism of youth as opposed to the cynicism of middle age?
Well, you can put it in that way if you want. But it's one of those things that I think in the grand scheme of things, you're going to get more decisions right than you got right previously. So, for example, over the weekend, watching games of football, the first time it gets used in Scotland, Hibs, they think they're getting a penalty at the end. The referee VAR overturns it. That's the right decision. I watched on Sunday a little bit of Swansea Cardiff game, and it was they don't have VAR in the Championship. It's a guy who used to play for Motherwell, Cedric Keepy, playing for Cardiff. He jumps up to win a header, puts his arm up, punches the ball away. It's clear as day. The referee doesn't see it. VAR would step in and give that. So you see those sorts of instances and you think, okay, fair enough. You're always going to get debatable issues still with VAR. You're still going to have decisions where we could think it's a penalty, other people who don't think it's a penalty. For me, that handball is a penalty. I don't see it as much of a debate. It's just the fact it didn't get reviewed.
But it's not a debate. That's that to me, that doesn't qualify as a debatable decision. You know, for two reasons. One is that you're absolutely right. I don't understand why. Well, the reason why it's not reviewed is because the VAR referee doesn't see it as a penalty. So if he thinks it's a penalty, he has to say to the referee, I think you need to go and have another look at it. Now, the referee might have a look at it and he's still entitled to interpret it. But by and large, if the referee's told to go and have a look at it, it means he's going to change his mind. But it's not that's why I think there should be an explanation as to what the thinking, what the process was behind that particular incident, because that's not a debate. If MD sees that, they know it is a penalty. It's not, you know, sometimes you see that there's challenges inside the box where sometimes you've seen them given, you've seen them not given. Sometimes, you know, like maybe a player puts his leg over the defender and sometimes he gets the penalty. Those are open to interpretation. A deliberate handball is just it's clear as day. So that's why I think it would be really helpful if they explained what the process was at the time, why the VAR referee watched that and thought, nah, it's not a penalty.
Yeah. I think really the only other point I'd have in VAR over the weekend in our game was it's just that viewer experience when you're at the game compared to when you're watching it on the telly, because you get the replays on the television, you might hear the commentators, they might have had a bit of information from VAR that they can pass on, so you get to that decision a bit quicker. But when you're at the stadium, the experience isn't great with it.
Because the advantage that you have, so I would have watched it on the TV, so you actually get, as a viewer, you get to see the different angles which the VAR referee's seeing at the same time. Whereas, as you say, the spectators, and I think we've seen it before where teams start celebrating goals and then the players have to stand about for about 3 or 4 minutes before they can celebrate again. So it does change the whole dynamic of football, I think.
Yeah. Going to football a bit more into that second half. Obviously, Hearts then get themselves back into the game to go 2-1 in front after a couple of minutes of the second half. But then it was a brilliant response from us. Giakoumakis gets the equaliser. Maeda puts us 3-2 in front. You're thinking, at that point, you're just thinking, hopefully you can have a little bit of calm in the game. Then Hearts get back into it again with another penalty. But again, it's just this team. I feel like I say it every week, and I feel like I'm getting tired of saying it, but it's so true that they just don't know when to stop.
Yeah, and I think one of there was so many pleasing aspects in the performance. I thought Aaron Moy had a great game at the weekend, and I think particularly in that second half, he had a hand in a couple of the goals, and that came after he had that great chance to have scored his first goal. And I think it's credit to him that maybe other players that might have played in their mind thinking, I'll blown this opportunity. That was a great chance to score. It was a chance to equalise. That would have been his first goal in front of the Celtic fans. But then he delivers the cross for the Giakoumakis goal. He then has the shot that Craig Gordon spills and Dyson Maeda scores. And I thought he had a great game. I thought he was very impressive at the weekend. I was really pleased. I thought he was at the heart of, I thought it was a really good team performance anyway. But he would have been one of the standouts for me.
The manager said that, I think last week, with the likes of Moy and Abelgard and Haksabanovic, who came in late, didn't have a pre-season. He said they're only going to get better, they're going to get stronger. Probably the second half of the year you'll probably see the best of them, because not having a pre-season, it does eventually catch up with your body. But I thought Moy looked a lot fitter, he looked stronger, looked more comfortable as well. I think one of the elements at the moment, we were just kind of talking about it before, is of course you miss Callum McGregor. Like, no one can say that you don't miss him, but it's the fact that we're still winning games and you're not looking at a team going, oh, like we desperately need Callum McGregor in there. It sounds bad saying that, but it's like the way that O'Reilly's come in, he's doing a job. Moy's come in, he's doing a job. Everyone in the squad's coming in, and it's just kind of still moving seamlessly even without him.
I think that's the benefit of playing in a particular style and having the team having a particular identity. That if a player is asked to play a specific role, they know what that role is. Now, they might not be able to play it as well as, for example, Callum McGregor, who, he would come back in, and then it frees up Matt O'Reilly to move forward. But then it also allows the manager to see, well, if for any reason we're not without the captain, then we know Matt O'Reilly can fit in there. We know Aaron Moy can push forward. He's looked excellent. So I think when players come in now, because quite often it's funny, you sometimes see, when you watch other games, and there was a game, I think Spurs at the weekend, where they brought in a substitute, and actually the commentators said, I don't think anybody knows where they're playing, because the substitute kept looking over to the bench, and they seemed to change the whole dynamic of their team. Whereas when our players come on, if they're playing a specific position, they know that's the style of play, that's the identity, that's what they're supposed to do. And I think that's where you see the real benefit, particularly when key players like Callum McGregor are missing the shape of the team, the style of the play, everything else, as you say, is seamless, because then the players know, right, well, this is the role I have to fill now.
Yeah, thought Maeda had a good game as well. Great to see him get a goal. We've obviously touched on Greg Taylor getting the winning goal, and an incredible moment for him, for the team in general. And I think when you look at that weekend, those types of games, Hearts away, winning it in the manner we did, it is just 3 points, but they have that little sense that they feel a little bit more, from my point of view anyway. Yeah,
and obviously the way the results panned out elsewhere, we end up at the end of the weekend with 4 points clear at the top of the table. I think those games, those are the ones where, teams start to, I think we start to think, certainly as supporters, you start to think, well, nobody can beat us. And I wonder whether the psychology of it is that other teams start to think that, even if they're hanging on there, or they're maybe winning, or they're drawing late in the game, they know this Celtic team is going to keep going. And I think what's been really interesting, and the manager's kind of alluded to it a couple of times in his interviews, where they've obviously looked ahead to the fixtures and seen that there's a really hectic schedule between now and the start of the World Cup, and it's almost as if they've almost planned in advance. This is the team. I know that's not the case, but so that every player is getting the amount of game time. So if somebody comes in, it's not like they haven't played for 2 or 3 weeks, or somebody's been playing for too long. Everybody's coming in, and you can see there's a freshness every time. The manager's making 4, 5, 6 changes. There's a real freshness every time we play. Every player that comes in, they've all bought into that, and they're all, we've seen it with James Forrest the last couple of games. We've seen it when Abada's came on, Giakoumakis at the weekend. I felt sorry for him at the weekend. I thought he was great again. I think obviously nobody's told Celtic that falling down under a challenge seems to be an offence now, because obviously Ryan Porteous has pioneered that, but I thought there was so many instances at the weekend where I think they must have just heard Giakoumakis coming towards them, they just fall down and they get a foul. I found that really frustrating.
Yeah, but I think, as you mentioned, the fact that you're making so many changes, I think that speaks for the culture that the manager's created, because look, footballers probably, they want to play every single game, but it's making an environment that every game, if you're on the bench, it's not necessarily that you are dropped, it's that you need to come on and affect the game later on. And having that buy-in from the whole group is really, really important when you have so many games. Because the manager said, people talk about Kyogo or Yakimakis to him, and he's like, well, if I play every single one, if I play one of these players for every game, they'll break down. So he almost kind of views them as like one striker, but in two different players, and you've got one for one game, one for the other, and it's really important.
I think we benefit. There's a couple of things you can see it from other teams that are, particularly the other Scottish teams that are playing in Europe. They're all picking up injuries as well, and it really stretches the squad. You saw it with Hearts at the weekend; they had some players missing. I think the lessons of last season, where we maybe didn't have the strength and depth, and so we were having to play the same players. Maybe Kyogo and David Turnbull were perfect examples of eventually that caught up with them. And so this season, I think there's been a real. Again, it goes back to, I think, the fact that we've got a specific style, a specific identity. So, if Dyson Maeda plays, he knows what he's doing in that role. If Haksabanovic comes on, he does the same. Greg Taylor's a perfect example of a player who comes on, as you say, he impacts the game. He scores the winning goal, and he's only on the pitch for about 20 minutes, but what an impact.
Yeah. We'll kind of look ahead now to the games coming up. We'll touch mainly on Shakhtar just after looking ahead to Livingston away, because that's the next league match. We saw them get a result at the weekend, which obviously went in our favour. Livingston away, always a game where you look at in the calendar and you think tough venue, tough pitch. But we got a really positive result there last season, the last time we went there. And the way that we're playing at the moment, the number of goals that we're scoring, I don't think, for me anyway, I'm going into the match and having that same thinking of, oh, it's Livy away, this is going to be, it will still be difficult, don't get me wrong, but you just have so much confidence in the team at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, they did get a good result. They were unlucky. I think if they'd stayed 11 against 11, they'd have probably won the game at Ibrox. So and I think at home they are a different proposition. I think that pitch does have an impact. They are a very physical team as well. They've got quite an imposing physical aspect to their team. I think in some respects it's remarkable what they've done, because, I mean, when you look at any game that doesn't involve Celtic, their game, I mean, it's a smattering of people in the stands. They have such a poor support just in terms of numbers, because they're caught between the draw of the Glasgow teams and the draw of the Edinburgh teams, so they're kind of stuck right in the middle. So they have a very small fan base. So the fact, I think they're punching above their weight in terms of, I'm guessing, in terms of turnover income as a club. So that's credit to them. And they do make it difficult for us, absolutely. So I think it's going to be a really tough game again at the weekend. I think it's beneficial to us that we're playing on Tuesday and then we don't play till Sunday. So it gives the players a few days in terms of rest, recovery and preparation as well. But that's actually probably one of the most difficult away games that we'll face in a season, just because of the way they play, and particularly at home, they're just very much quick back to front and just trying to physically impose themselves in the game.
They've got good quality in the team as well, Livingston, but the prerequisite is you need to work hard to be in that team, and they all do. And I don't know where they always find these big 6'4" strikers, but they always seem to have one, and that Nubly seems a bit of a player. Obviously scored at the weekend. He's really kind of showed his class this season for Livingston, so he'll obviously be a threat as well. But yeah, I just, for me, I think the way that we are playing, I think the manager says it a lot of the time, they obviously look at the opposition, but the main thing is, if we perform, we know we're difficult to beat. So it's just about us turning up and performing. Yeah,
and I think the encouraging thing was when we played them last season and won, that was the first time in a long time we'd beat them in the league through there.
Yeah, first time since they've been back up in the league. Yeah.
And it was impressive the way we played, and we absolutely dominated that game, even missed a penalty as well. So yeah, I think it'll be encouraging. And given the fact that we've got that wee gap at the top of the table, you want to just keep that going.
Shakhtar on Tuesday night in the Champions League. Now, we can't qualify for the last 16 now, have the results that have went our way so far. There still is the possibility of qualifying for Europa League. We'll need to beat Shakhtar on Tuesday night and then go to Madrid and get a result, and hope results also fall in our favour as well to finish third. What we want to do though is the fact that we've had so many performances already where we've played really well, we've missed just chances. If we take some of them, the games are different stories. We want to get a victory to get a kind of that feel-good factor again in Europe, and also you really want to go into that game against Real Madrid with something to play for.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the corresponding game in Warsaw against Shakhtar was certainly one that, you know, we got the point, but we should have won that game. I mean, we dominated the second half. I don't think Shakhtar had a single chance in that whole second half. We completely dominated, and again, it is the kind of, it's been the commentary on this campaign. Again, the manager spoke about it as when he's been asked about it, it's not that we've been outplayed or outclassed or we're out of depth. It's simply those fine margins between taking your chances or not, because we are creating chances. So that is the most encouraging thing, and you know here that will be the case again. I think Shakhtar have shown, you know, I think in the last game against Real Madrid, they showed their quality. So it will not be an easy game, regardless of the fact we dominated the first game, but that would be the most encouraging thing, that you think, well, at home, and we've had a rich seam of goal scoring form as well, so the players, and the goals are coming from all over the pitch as well. So I think you have to go into the game confident, and as you say, you win that game, you go to the Bernabeu, it's, you know, regardless of whether Real Madrid play their strongest team or not their strongest team, I think even if they don't, it's still going to be really, really strong. I think these things are all relative. It'll be really tough, but you know, that's what you want. You want to go to the Bernabeu with the prospect of maybe getting a result that might keep us in Europe after Christmas.
I thought you were going to say their weakest team, and I was going to correct you and say, yeah, they definitely don't have a weaker team, Real Madrid. But no, that's really important. And I think even if it transpires that we don't finish third and you fall out of Europe altogether, I think for the team to get a victory, for that, just to have that element of, here's a signpost of our progress, because we've got a good result away to Shakhtar. Probably, as you said, should have won that game with the chances that we had. In all the other games, we've had really, really good spells of pressure and chances, and that is a sign of progress. But I think to get a victory, just to say, right, here we are, we can 100% compete at this level. We go back into the competition, hopefully again next year, and we're going to improve in those 4 points or whatever it is we end up on.
Yeah, absolutely. I think what's dangerous about Shakhtar is the fact that they'll go into the game knowing if they get something from the game, then they're guaranteed finishing at least third. So that makes them dangerous. But I do think, and we've seen it from the home games so far, that, you know, if we start strongly and get the first goal, I think that's important. If we can get the first goal, then I'm confident that we'll go on and we'll get the 3 points.
Yeah, well, I'll get your prediction for that game a little bit later on.
Are we still playing that game? I thought you'd given up.
Oh, don't start on that. But we've got an exclusive interview now with Jiri Jarosik, a man who played the last time that Celtic played Shakhtar Donetsk at home in the Champions League. A 2-1 victory back in 2007, and Jiri scoring the equaliser on that evening, a result which ended up with Celtic qualifying for the last 16 of the Champions League. And Jiri looked back on that match and his time at Celtic. Yeah, absolutely delighted to have Jiri Jarosik on the podcast to look back in his Celtic career and to that game against Shakhtar Donetsk back in 2007. Jiri, really great to have you on. First of all, how are you and what are you up to just now in your life after playing football?
Hello everyone, it's Jiri. I'm still on the football because now I'm head coach. That's why I'm very close to football, and of course it was good time in the Celtic. I have a lot of memories and always looking for Celtic.
Brilliant, that's great to hear. Let's go back to the start of your Celtic career. You joined the club from Chelsea back in 2006. You had a loan spell at Birmingham City as well. Just tell us about how the move came about and why you decided to join Celtic at that time.
Yeah, I have a good season in Birmingham, and I have 2-3 different offers, but I decided for Celtic because Celtic is still big name of football world, and I wanted to win titles again, and I wanted to play Champions League in front of this amazing fans. That's why I decided in signing for Celtic.
What do you remember about your first few days of signing for Celtic? Does anything stand out about moving to Glasgow and meeting the players in the dressing room?
I can say only nice words because the people inside and around the club were very nice and friendly and happy to help me all the time. And I also like it how the people and everyone in the club loves football and they are proud of to be in Celtic, you know. And of course the teammates was great and the coaches too. That's why I was satisfied in Celtic.
So Gordon Strachan was the manager when he signed you. What did he say to you to try and bring you to the club, and what was his expectation for yourself?
In this time, I think in Celtic wasn't too many players who has experience with the Champions League, and that's why maybe they want to sign me because I play in Champions League for Sparta Praha and CSK Moscow. That's why maybe they want, they need players who has this experience, and maybe that's why.
You talk to us a little bit more about those European nights, because when you signed that season, Celtic went straight into the group stages of the Champions League in 2006. We had Benfica, Copenhagen, Manchester United in our group. Just how special were those occasions and how excited did you get going into those games?
No, I told you because, for example, we had a big success because we played in front of these fans because they give you strength and courage, you know. And we play very well at home, especially at home. And of course, we have good memories because if you beat good and big teams like, what did you say, like Benfica or Manchester United, this is good for everyone, not only for the fans and of course for the players and for the club.
You're remembered in that game against Manchester United because you won the free kick for Nakamura to score from. Just tell us a little bit more about your memories of that night and that game in particular.
It's quite difficult to say. For example, one memory because of the time was a great team, Manchester United, and we beat them at home. Of course, I remember the free kick of Nakamura because in front of he was excellent player and he has excellent left foot. And I think in this game we were not better than Manchester United, but I told you we play for with the strength and we had courage. That's why maybe we beat them because in this time was Manchester excellent team.
In terms of the atmosphere at Celtic Park, how much does that push you on as a player? What does it give you inside?
Celtic has incredible fans. And they give you everything, you know. That's why you are there on the pitch and you want to show him fight to the end, and you believe that you can win on 95 minutes, for example, because the atmosphere there is amazing, you know. Everybody who play there all the time speaking with me or with the friends, and everybody want to repeat it because the atmosphere there is fantastic.
There were some other big European nights you played in the game where we beat AC Milan 2-1 in the following season, but let's look specifically at the game against Shakhtar Donetsk. What were your memories going into that match? Because it was a very important game for Celtic if we wanted to qualify for the last 16.
Like every game especially in the Champions League, is very important for everybody. And of course, we play. I think it was last game in the group, and we must win. We losing 1-0, and then we score for 1-1, and I don't know. It's my goal. Yeah, it's my goal for 1-1. Yeah. And on the end we won 2-1, and everybody was happy. Special for me, of course. If you score in the Champions League, is something special. You have good memories. It was a nice shoot, and I was very happy, of course, to win the game, and of course to help to my team to win this game.
The team under Gordon Strachan that you played in got so many big results in Europe at home. What was it about the team that enabled them to get those types of results against the best teams in Europe?
Of course, we concentrate for this Champions League games because it was something special for everyone, and we put our maximum. But I tell you, it's difficult, for example, because we play at home very well, but we have problem away the games, win or play well. That's why we need to change a little bit our mind. But we have a great manager, and I tell you, like before, at home we can beat everyone. That's why we are concentrate for every situation in this situation in the pitch, and that's it. No.
As you mentioned, the game against Shakhtar, we got off to the worst possible start because they took an early lead, but you were the person right in the stroke of half time to score an absolute screamer of a left foot volley. Just tell us about your memories of that goal in particular and what was going through your head as the ball fell to you.
I want to start we play, I remember 4-4, maybe 1-1 or 2, doesn't matter. I play on the left, and this is not my position, for example, but I remember this game. I play well. And I told you before, we are losing this game, but we want to win this game. That's why we push them to the back, and it was, I remember the situation, it was long ball to the 16-yard box to Shakhtar, and two central defenders jumped to throw the ball, and I collect the rebounds, and I shoot from the left footed. It was my left, but I have both of good quality. That's why I shoot from the one touch, and it was amazing goal, but very important because in this time we play 1-1 and we have chance to win this game again.
Where does that goal rank for you amongst your favourite memories and favourite goals in your career? Because scoring in the Champions League must be so special in such a big game.
Yeah, it's true. Because you don't score a lot of goals. I wasn't a striker, That's why I have every goals in my memories. But for me, of course, goals and wins are very important. But I was all the time like teammate players, For me, if we win or won like team, it was for me a little bit in front of for example, my goals or my good actions, For me, it's important how we play like team and how we can be satisfied like team. Then, for example, I play well, but we lost, for example, I don't like it. That's why I was very happy in this time. I remember that goals, but more important is wins for the team and for the Celtic.
Can you remember what the noise was like in the stadium when that ball hit the back of the net?
Yeah. I saw. I don't know when last time the goal from this game. Yeah, it was something special because you want to see, of course, a nice goal. But did you see the old ground on the fields, and they are absolutely in fantastic atmosphere. Everybody is celebrating the goals, and we are one team with the fans. It was something special. That's why we was very strong team at home.
What do you remember then about the second half of that game? That goal must have given the team a lot of confidence going in at half time, but if I remember correctly, Shakhtar Donetsk were quite a strong team back then.
Yes, of course, it's true. We can say not only about us. In this time, Shakhtar Donetsk was excellent team. They have a lot of Brazilian players, and they are fighting too for they win. That's why they was a little bit surprised that we can beat them. But yeah, it's football only, and in this time we were better, and we score and we qualified for the last stage, and that's why we were very happy and we have good memory.
Yeah, it was Massimo Donati that scored in injury time to get the win that would then see us into the last 16. Just tell us about your memories of where you were in the pitch when that went in and how you remember it.
And I remember that the players of Shakhtar go down on the field, and they are dead. Of course, they put their maximum, and they fight for win as our team, But this is football. You can win only one team, and we was a little bit more lucky. And I remember he scored maybe left foot too. It was not so nice goal, I remember, but very important. Doesn't matter. Nobody asked it now how they scored, but maybe it was first goal for him in the Champions League. That's why he will be remembered to the end.
Yeah, they're amazing memories to look back on. Jiri, just to finish up on, in terms of when you look back on your Celtic career as a whole, you were there for 2 seasons. How do you remember your time at Celtic?
Yeah, it is a little bit maybe how long, maybe 12, maybe more years ago. Of course, I am happy for that decision, and of course I will be all the time a big fan of Celtic. I wish you all the best, and I hope I can go one time back to Scotland, to Glasgow, and I want to be once in the stand, in the stadium, and I want to show for example, for my family, for my kids, and I show them this place and this stadium and this club, because I was satisfied, and of course I will be all the time remembering this time in the Celtic.
No, that's great, Jiri. Thank you so much. Yeah, you're definitely welcome back at Celtic Park anytime, and thank you so much for taking out the time to speak with us and looking back in that match against Shakhtar Donetsk. It's really, really good to speak to you.
Okay, I wish you all the best for the next game, and I hope we can see each other on the stadium of Celtic.
Yeah, great to hear from Jiri Jarosik there, and really, really fond memories for him, his time from Celtic and that match against Shakhtar Donetsk. Paul, the weekend, the B team were in action, the women team were in action. They continued their defence of the League Cup, unfortunately bowing out of the competition. Finished 1-1 against Spartans. Celtic had gone down, lost, got someone sent off as well, Jacinta, got a red card in the match. Went to penalties. Spartans won in penalties. It must have just been a really disappointing afternoon for Fran Alonso and the women's side.
Yeah, I mean, I think given last season we won both of the domestic cups, I think the plan, obviously the aim was to try and win them and then have a real go in the league, which I think is obviously still the case. I think, at the point when we had Jacinta sent off, I think we were 1-0 up, we were dominating the game, and even after we went down to 10 players, I think we were certainly the stronger team. We had chances. throughout the game I think a second goal would have won it for us, and it was almost, I think, with the last kick of the 90 minutes that Spartans equalised. But even then, in the extra time, and we saw that from the Scottish Cup final last year, that even down to 10 players, this is a team that just always keep going forward. So I think that would probably be the most frustrating thing, I think, for the team, the fact that even on the day and with the numerical disadvantage, we should have won it. But if it had been 11 against 11, we would definitely been in the semi-final. But I suppose that's it's cliche to say, it's the nature of cup football that these things can happen, and the Spartans are in the semi-final and obviously we're out.
I think that also just goes to show how amazing their achievements were last year to go on and win 2 domestic cup trophies in one season, because, as you mentioned, in cup games anything can happen. You lose a player to a red card, to injuries, teams score in the 90th minute, all these things can happen, and it felt like just the epitome of a cup game. They all happened in that 120 minutes of football for Celtic, and then the resulting penalties as well. But for them, they've got a big game this weekend as well, Glasgow City away in the league, so there's no time to sit back and feel disappointed. They're going to have to go again in a top of the table clash.
And I think this is the first challenge of the new season, because it's been an impeccable record up to now. That in the league we've won all our games, we haven't conceded any goals, and I think they would have gone into that game full of confidence, thinking, right, that we'll get to the semi-final. And even what transpired over the 120 minutes, they would have looked back in that action and say, well, we should have gone through. And I haven't seen the reaction from Fran yet in terms of what he thought about the red card. I think it was dissent. I think it was a red card, so I don't know what they thought about that. And obviously that did have an impact on the game, because he then has to change things. So that's difficult, but it is the first challenge. It was never going to be 100% throughout the course of the season. So it's how the players pick themselves up this weekend that is, as you say, it's a big challenge for them. But I think that, I've been impressed with the way that they've played. There's a lot of new players. They seem to have gelled really quickly. And, I think if they can put that, they have to put that behind them, which I suppose that's the nature of professional footballers. The fans can wallow in defeats. The players have to put that behind them and then just focus. And I'm sure after a day or two when they report back to training, that's exactly what the message will be from Fran. Like, let's just focus ahead, get another 3 points on the table.
Because I think Fran said after the game against Spartans that he wasn't really disappointed in terms of the effort and application of the players. It's just one of those games where these things can happen. But what a way to bounce back it would be if they can go and beat Glasgow City, who themselves are undefeated in the league, and just start to build a little gap, because beat Glasgow City last year in both cup finals, but then to do it in the league would be another step in their ambitions to try and challenge for the title this season.
Yeah, and we've mentioned it before that the biggest tests in the league were ahead of the team, and that was Glasgow City and against Rangers. So this is the first big test at the weekend, and I think regardless of the result of the weekend, we will take Glasgow City on full of confidence. There's a lot of good play, a lot of goals in the team, so hopefully that'll materialise at the weekend, and I think it would be a big win for us if we can get the 3 points.
Well, ahead of the match, last week we didn't have a My Game, My Words, but it's back this week, and it's Taylor Otto who is in the hot seat, the American defender / striker as well, she can play up front, sat down to tell us her life story and how she's ended up at Celtic.
I grew up in Cleveland, Ohio area, and I started playing soccer when I was 4. I moved to North Carolina when I was 12. I started playing when I was young, but I think I always just loved it more than other sports, and so I took it pretty seriously since a younger age. And then when I moved to North Carolina, actually, I was so angry because I loved the Cleveland area and all my friends there. So I was like, oh, I'm done. I'm not playing soccer. I'm quitting, and just go against my parents. And so it lasted for 2 weeks, and then I started playing again in North Carolina. So yeah, moving at that age was hard because I I don't know, at that age you just like love all your friends and like that's all you care about. So I was just like, I don't understand why you're making me leave. Like this makes no sense. But it ended up being a really good thing. And obviously I made new friends in North Carolina and I had great coaches there and a great experience there. So yeah. From probably when I was like 13 or 14, the only thing I ever wanted to do was play soccer. And like people would ask me what I wanted to be when I grew up, and I was like a soccer player. And to this day, like there's really nothing else I want to do. I mean, obviously, eventually I'm going to have to do something else, but yeah, it's always been what I want to do, and it's going to be what I want to do until I can't anymore, so. I mean, obviously we make a lot of sacrifices, and you do feel like you're missing out on a lot of things at that age, but then also at the same time, like you're enjoying what you're doing, so you don't in a way. Like when I look back on it now, I'm like, oh yeah, maybe I could have been involved in a little more, done a little bit more things outside of the sport, but I think if you want to get to this level, like that's what you have to do. So for me, I think it was worth it. In America, they've done a good job of, I guess, like making a path for women in sports now. It's a huge movement, and there's a lot of women that have kind of made that more of a, I guess, like reliable path for us. Like we can make a living on it, and so for that, I'm very grateful that like where I grew up, I was able to like look up to people and be like, yeah, this is what I want to do. So I think the way that America has gone about it is very good, and obviously there's still room for improvement, but yeah, it was a big reason as to why I could sit there and say, yeah, this is what I want to do when I grow up. So I've actually had 5 knee surgeries. I had 2 ACLs, one when I was 15, and then I came back from that, and 6 months after I was cleared, I did it again, and then I was out for 9 months, and then every like 2 years I had a few scopes in my knees. So yeah, I think those were really big moments for me where I kind of decided like, yeah, this is something I really want to do. Like I'm injured, but I'd rather take the time to heal and get back on the field than kind of like go a different direction. So as much as those injuries were difficult for me, I think they allowed me to realize that like this is really what I want to do and appreciate the game a little bit more. When I was 14 or 15, I committed to the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. I was there for 5 years. I loved every minute of it there. I think it was a great environment. It's a cool environment because you do have to figure out like a balance of your social life, your academic life, as well as performing as well as you can on the field. For me, I didn't find it like too difficult because I think you like put your head down and you're like, yep, this is what I gotta do. You wake up, get it done, you're busy. By the time you're done with your day, you're like a little bit exhausted and you just kind of get into a rhythm of things. But yeah, you definitely have to be very disciplined, but it's a lot of fun, and I wouldn't give it up for the world. I loved my 5 years in college. January of 2021, I was drafted to Racing Louisville in the NWSL, and I played there for a year and a half, and then I decided to move overseas and come here to Celtic. I've had a really good experience. I've loved it here, and I really love the group of girls here. So I feel like people aren't always that lucky. Like I've gotten really lucky in that aspect. I haven't had like a time where I've been like, oh, like this has been like really hard for me. Like I've really enjoyed it here, and I think everyone's been so welcoming and made it easy for me. But yeah, I think the only thing that was really like difficult for me was kind of the accents a little bit. So I think similar to everyone, we just really want to win everything that we can, and that's a big goal for me. And I think here as well as anywhere, I just want to get better and be the best player that I can and learn as much as I can from the coaches and players that I'm around every day. So yeah, that's very important to me. Looking back, I think I don't think I've ever given my parents like enough credit for how much like they've always been there for me and like supported me, as well as Anson Dorrance, which was my college coach. He really helped me develop not only as a player but as a person, and that I'm very grateful for, and I think has allowed me to feel comfortable enough to move to a different country or just, integrate in different environments. So for that, I'm very grateful, and I think he has had a very big impact on my soccer career. I think 12-year-old me would be very excited and happy with the position that she is in now.
Yeah, so no B team action in the weekend there, but this week, Paul, they have Shakhtar Donetsk as well in the UEFA Youth League. They currently sit with 1 victory from 4 games, and that was in the away game against RB Leipzig. The last match was RB Leipzig at home, which they were defeated in. What's for the B team? What's the kind of important things for them going into this match? We hear a lot about the performance levels, and that's almost sort of superseding the results. But if they could get another result in the UEFA Youth League and maybe end the competition on 2 wins, then that'd be a real positive for the team.
Well, you're writing them off against Real Madrid as well, and they might go.
At least.
I mean, I think what you said applied perfectly to the game against Shakhtar. I think we lost that one 2-1, but we were very unlucky. I think the performance was excellent. I think both Dan O'Dea and Steve McManus were delighted with the application of the players, given the heavy defeat they'd suffered against Real Madrid here in the first game, and I think we were unlucky to lose that game. So I think it's one of those ones that, again, the learning experience from the home game against Leipzig is, I think we lost goals early on, and it I think it probably derailed our attempts to get anything from that game. So I think they'll go into it positive. You're hoping that maybe just the enforced break, they'll be refreshed, they'll be desperate to play. It's a big game for them. So yeah, I think they'll go into it full of confidence. And again, it's a tough game because Shakhtar showed that they're a decent youth side, but I'm sure the B team will be hoping to get another win. And
hopefully, as you mentioned, their schedule recently has been a little bit disjointed in terms of not having regular matches at the weekend. I don't really know too much of the reason as to why that is.
I think partly because there was a couple of Lowland League games, but because quite a lot of the Lowland League teams were involved in the Scottish Cup.
Yeah.
So that kind of curtailed most of the fixture list.
Yeah. So hopefully though, that gives them the weekend off and a little bit more time to rest and prepare for the game against Shakhtar Donetsk, and hopefully can get another 3 points in the group stage of the Youth League. I actually don't know if I want to end the podcast in this note. What we do every week now is end on a predictions game, where each week we get a supporter on to play for the fans, and we go up against each other and go up against the supporters. Things aren't really looking too good for myself at the moment. Last week, out of the 7 games, you got 3 correct results. So you got 11 points in total. 3 correct scorelines. You got 11 points in total. You also got the result right in 2 other games. For the supporters, they also got the Kilmarnock score right that you predicted. So they got 3 points for that. In total, they got 7 points, and I only got 4 points. So at the moment, the standings are I'm in 12, supporters are in 17, and you're in 23.
That's good. But listen, we said last week it's a long season, so
yep, titles are won in March and
listen,
April.
You're
and
third
May.
top at the moment, so let's be positive.
This is the week. This is it. Right, so this week for the fans, we've got Kieran Carruthers on to take part. So we've got another 7 games to go through. Paul, let's start off then with the first team, Celtic against Shakhtar Donetsk in the Champions League.
But I'm going to go for a home win, obviously. I'm going to go Celtic to win 3-2. I think it's going to be, because I think Shakhtar will come in for the reasons I mentioned earlier on. They know if they can get something from this game, that kills our chances of the Europa League. I think it'll be a very open game, so I'm expecting a few goals.
Okay, Kieran is going for 3-1, and I'm going for 2-1, a repeat of that game that Jiri Jarosik scored in. So we've all got different scorelines for that. So that's
as long as we win. Those ones, as long as we win, then it doesn't matter what the scoreline.
A 93rd minute winner as well, like Donati got in that game. We'll take that. The Bees against the Celtic against Shakhtar B in the UEFA Youth League. What are your thoughts?
For that one, I'm going to go for 2 each. Again, I think they showed in the last game that they've got some good attacking intent, as have we. I think it's going to be end-to-end stuff, so I'm going to go for 2 apiece.
I'm going for 1-0 and Kieran is going for 2-0 in that one. Another game from the first team's group in the Champions League, Leipzig against Real Madrid. Might be an interesting one because you don't know how Real Madrid are going to maybe change their team around.
I think they'll win that. I think it'll be 2-1 because I think that's the game. Real Madrid always qualify from the group stages. It's just a given. They just know, they've got that quality. I think winning that game, they win the group as well, and then it just means that they can. Although it means it allows Ancelotti to maybe rest some players for when we play them. They'll still be a really strong team, but it just means they're not going into that game thinking, right, we still want to win this group. So I think they'll win 2-1.
Kieran went for 2-1. I'd also said 2-1, but I'll go different so we're not all three of us have the same result, which now means that you're going to get 2-1 and I'm going to be right. Yeah, exactly. So I'll go for 3-1 to Real Madrid. I think they'll win as well, and then it means that, yeah, as you said, it's done and dusted for them. A game so we've got a couple other sort of Celtic affiliated games, but two others, one from our Premiership up here in Scotland, one from the English one at the weekend. First of all, in Scotland, Hibs against St Mirren.
Oh, that's a tough one because both those teams, Hibs, I think, probably until they went down to 10 men, would have won that game against St Johnstone. Sell-out crowd as well at Easter Road. St Mirren doing well, actually. I'm going to go for 2 apiece again, 2 each.
I've also went for 2 each, actually, but I'm going to stick with it.
Stick with your gun.
I'm going to stick with it. And Kieran he's went for 2-0 Hibs, but yeah, I've exactly the same. St Mirren are going really well at the moment. Stephen Robinson, it's almost like the kind of mirror image of what Motherwell were 4 years ago.
Yeah.
I think he might have finished third with them and
They
got a
did,
couple
yeah.
of cup finals against us. So yeah, they're going well. And Hibs, I've watched them on some occasions and they've looked good, and other occasions not so good. Maybe drop points in games you expect them to win. So I think it should be a good game anyway. Game down in England, taking Brighton against Chelsea. I thought it's quite an interesting one, with Graham Potter going back to Brighton as well. Chelsea's results under him have been good. I don't know if the performances have been as great, and Brighton are always dangerous, particularly at home.
Yeah, that's a tough one. I think you're right. I think it was interesting they played Manchester United at the weekend, Chelsea, and they changed their tactics quite quickly because the way they'd lined them up wasn't working, and they almost won it. But I think they did. I don't know if they deserved to win it. I think Manchester United were probably the better team. Brighton haven't won yet under their new manager.
No.
But I think it's just one of those. I'm going to go for 2-1 Brighton, just for, like football sometimes throws up these things where actually maybe logic and reason goes out the window, but it's just one of those quirky things where Graham Potter's successor gets his first victory as Brighton manager over Graham Potter's Chelsea. So I'm going to go 2-1 Brighton.
Yeah, Kieran's went for 1-0 Chelsea, and I'm going 1 each. Exactly the same. I think Brighton have looked good. Only saw their highlights against Man City, and again scored a goal, had a good couple of chances. But I mean, City have Haaland, and De Bruyne, so it's game over. Doesn't really matter. 2 other games for ourselves: Livingston against Celtic on Sunday.
I'm going to go 2-1 for Celtic. I think it's these games are. I hate going there. I mean, it's a horrible. I hate the plastic pitch. It's not it's not been a great venue for us. I think they'll be going to the game full of confidence. They'll definitely, physically they'll try and impose themselves. But I think just now, kind of what you said earlier on, we've just got too much about us just now. So 2-1 for Celtic.
I'm going 3-0. I'm feeling quite good about it.
I'll take that.
Yeah. And Kieran's going 4-0. So I mean, I'd rather that. But yeah. No, I think Livingston are always difficult, and I always feel bad kind of going into the game and thinking that we're going to be quite comfortable against them, because if you look at the recent past, we never have been comfortable against them. So recent history wouldn't really prove that. But I just think the way that we're playing at the moment, we're playing really well. A lot of rotation in the team. So yeah, 3-0 for me. And then finally is the the big game in the Women's League, Glasgow City against Celtic.
Again, that's a tough one, but I'm going to go for 2-1 Celtic. Clarissa Larissy with a double.
Oh, we're going goal scorer.
Yeah, well, I may as well. I'm so far ahead. I can get a bit blasé about it. I think they will bounce back. I think that will be. I don't think the team would have needed any extra motivation, but I think they'll probably be quite hurt at losing at the weekend, and I think there'll be a real determination in the squad this week to bounce back and show how good they are. So I'm going to go 2-1.
Yep, 2-1 for myself as well, and Kieran has gone for 1-0. So a couple of different results in there, but yeah, I think they'll bounce back and they'll get it done, and hopefully I get it done as well this week, and I can be sitting in a better position than 12 and 11 points behind you already, because God, that is, I'm not happy about that. But yeah, no, thanks very much for joining us for another episode of the Celtic View Podcast. Do join us again next week to see if I've improved in those results as we look ahead as well next week to the big game against Real Madrid at the Bernabeu. But yeah, thanks for now. Cheers.